So, our whole topic today is starting your own pet care business.
I think the first question you should really answer for yourself before you start a pet business is, what does a successful pet business look like to you? And it's hard. Owning a business is hard. We're just not going to pull any punches. And I wish I would have answered that question before I opened mine, because there were times where I felt like I didn't have a successful pet business. But primarily, I had to learn that it wasn't all about financial success. There were other types of success. And I think having that kind of as your guiding light would help make some decisions and maybe even form your business differently. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. And I think for a lot of people that we talk to, when because we do help, obviously, help people open their pet care businesses. A lot of people, I think, have a vision that they totally love the animals and they want to take great care of them. And those, frankly, are some of the best people to have in the pet industry because they put care of the animals above everything else. So I definitely think that is probably one of the most common things. I know we have worked with a ton of people who get into the pet industry because they can't find a service for their own dog. And so they feel like there's got to be something better than this. I can't even find something for my dog, let alone everyone else in the community. And that's their driving factor. They want to succeed by being able to add something to their community that's better than what already exists. And then obviously there's the financial part of it, like how much do you want to make? And I think in everyone's head, they want to make money. That's everybody's vision. But a lot of times that gets put on the back burner as they dream of opening their business starts to take place. And they don't always pay as much attention to all of that. So it's definitely something to consider. And then really how long do you want it to take to
Yeah.
where you're making that money as well? Because obviously you're not going to start out in month one making a six-figure salary. So how long can you go? And I think that's one of the questions we'll talk about later as well.
Yeah. And I think like once you know what a successful pet business looks like to you, then it's knowing your why. And as you said, people get into it because they love pets, which is a given. I wanted to take my dogs to work with me, which isn't the best reason. And in hindsight, it has to be more than just loving dogs or wanting to take your own dogs to work for you, because I've talked to a lot of pet business owners that had daycares and their dogs hated it or weren't a good fit for it. So then that went out the window. I was fortunate my dogs did work out in daycare. But the reality is, if you own a pet business, you work with people. And sometimes you have to make the time to actually go hang out with the pets, especially as you become business owner and work on your business. Knowing your why also will get you through some of the tough times of being a business owner.
Yeah, and I definitely think we follow a guy in leadership called Michael Hyatt, and he talks about this a lot of there's that beginning stage of anything. We're talking about pet businesses here, but it's anything that you do. There's that beginning stage where you're all excited and you're like, I'm going to do this. This is so awesome. There's obviously the ending stage where you get to open your doors and you're thrilled and you're popping the champagne cork. And then there's what he calls the messy middle, which is everything in between. And in that messy middle, where your permits are delayed or your construction worker isn't showing up, or you just found out that you didn't actually get the permit that you wanted and it's going to be 2 more weeks, and you have people that were expecting to book with you. There's so many things that can sideline you. And that's when knowing your why comes into play. Because if you know your why and you're really grounded into it, whether it's you're dedicated for whatever reason to the care of the dogs, or you're doing this because ultimately this is a business and your legacy that you want to leave behind, or maybe you want to retire, or maybe you just want to be able to quit your job and spend more time with your family by owning your own business. Whatever that why is becomes so important because it will push you through all of those frustrations and challenges, because you will have those frustrations and challenges. So I definitely think even creating like a vision board or having your why somewhere where you can see it and you don't forget about it is really important, because you will find that you'll want to come back to that and it will help you.
It will. And we talk about it being hard and the messy middle. There are a lot of great things about being an owner in the pet business, because you really are helping pets and families. I remember people saying it was the first time they'd ever taken a vacation because they couldn't find anybody they trusted to care for their dogs. And especially you, Robin, with all the training and behavior work you did, you had such a positive impact on the dogs and their families. It chokes me up just thinking about.
Yeah, and you really do. In pet industry, you get to know the people so well, and you just will love them. Like they become such a big extension of your family. So that really is one of the wonderful things about being in the pet industry, and also why you need to like people are a big part of what you're doing. The dogs obviously are a huge part, but you do get to know the people and they become part of your family. And that is a wonderful thing about being in the pet industry because you really do provide, you become, as we say all the time, sometimes I feel like I'm part dog trainer, part marriage counselor, part family counselor because they bring you your challenges and it's so rewarding to be able to help them. And a lot of times those challenges have to do with their dogs doing something at home, and by you offering daycare, you can help them with that and help them to get a better balance in their life. And like you said, getting people to be able to take vacations,
Mhm.
which will happen again when COVID is over. But that's all so amazing and one of the great things about having your own pet business.
And like all the puppies and meeting new breeds and being able to engage with them and then send them home. It's like grandkids. I never had any kids, but you can enjoy all these breeds, but they don't have to live with you. And I really do miss all the puppies. It was amazing. I think another thing, we're just chatting about some of the things people don't always talk about in starting your business, but this next one I know, Robin, is one that you really have been trying to educate even existing business owners on. But what we find is, who is your target client? And why is it not okay to say anybody that owns a pet is my target client?
I know this is one of my soapbox issues is really understanding who your client is the way to make your business successful. And the more this is so I really do think this is counterintuitive. And this is something I've taken lots and lots of classes on, and I'm one of those people that totally geeks out on marketing and data and all that stuff. But I really do think it's counterintuitive to think that the more you narrowly you define your market, the more success you will see. I think what most people think is I have to go really broad and just market to every pet parent that's in my community and then I'll be successful. And it does not work that way. What works is the more narrow you can define your niche down to like where do they hang out, what movies do they like, what places do they go to see, what magazines do they read, whatever. Like the more narrowly you define your market, the better you can talk to them and the better you can compel them as to why they should use your services. And so it really does become, and I would say this is probably a skill that is something that coaches can help you with. And I'm not even saying the dog gurus. I'm saying people that actually work with companies to do branding and mission statements. The dog gurus worked with a company to help us define that for us because it really is important. But the more clear you can be on who that person is, the better success you're going to see. So I don't know, Susan, what else you want to add to that? Because I could go on forever about
I mean,
about.
and I think one thing I would think or recommend is to consider where you want to be in the marketplace. Do you want to be in the middle of the pack with your pricing and almost like commodity, or do you want to be at higher end or low end? Because that will define, I think, who your ultimate target market is. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And we had a call earlier this morning, Susan and I did with some folks, and I thought the example that they gave was really good because they were talking about hotels. And we recently had the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center do a series of 3 seminars for our folks. Ritz-Carlton is not telling you that they're out for everybody that needs to stay in a hotel when they go on vacation. They just aren't. And how many of you that are watching would say, oh, every time we stay 100%, we're going to a Ritz Carlton? There's probably some of you out there, but there's probably a lot of you like me. I'm like in the Marriott area, like in the Marriott brand area. And for a long time, actually even now, if I travel with my dog and the Marriotts aren't allowing dogs, some of them do now, which is awesome, I'll stay in a different hotel that might be not as nice as a Marriott. So the fact of the matter is, and I did think this was interesting when he said when daycares open up next to each other, we all freak out. You're like, oh no, there's competition next to me. But then if you think about it for hotels, you go anywhere and there's like at minimum of 3 or 4 hotels usually all bunched together. And the reason, but they're all so different. There's one high end, one middle, one that might be lower, and they all can service people and they can all make money and they can all generate revenue. But it really, they're not, I can guarantee you, they're not all saying our target market is everyone that's on vacation.
Right.
Some of them are going to be targeting to the pet parent who has a dog. Some of them are targeting to the person that's got massive disposable income and wants the best of the best. And some of them are somewhere in the middle. But I can tell you, they clearly define their market. And that's what you really need to do for your pet care business. Who exactly do you want? What do they look like? What does their day look like? What are their frustrations? What are their challenges? Because those are the things you are solving for them. And that's what your business is all about, or that's what your business becomes all about.
And just think about it. If you were a hotel, I think this is a great example, and you wanted to market to the people who prefer to come to Hotel 6 or Motel 6 or whoever, leave a light on for you. Are you going to be marketing in the same places and using the same strategy if you were either a Marriott or Ritz Carlton? It's a great example to understand why narrowing your niche allows you to speak and attract the people you want. And if you try to talk to everybody, unfortunately, no one's going to resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you try to be something to everybody, your message is so watered down that it's too generic to even resonate to make somebody go, "Oh, I really need that service." Because just it becomes something that doesn't mean anything to them. Sabine said, totally agree with narrowing your market. When I opened my doggy daycare specifically for dogs 30 pounds and under, I was told by many I'd never find enough clients if I opened only small daycares, which that's an awesome example. We actually know several people that specialize in small dog
Mhm.
daycare. And that, so look, that's going to change the way you market. Like I would totally market to apartment complexes where maybe they have a restriction on the size dogs that you can have in that apartment complex. So there's differences in where you're going to market and what you're going to say. And that's going to really help to define how you grow your business as well. So I definitely think that's a perfect example for our industry. I know people, dog trainers that specialize just in separation anxiety. I know
Yeah.
dog trainers that specialize just in aggression. In my facility, when I did my training, we tried to do everything initially. I was like, oh, people are out. And this is the problem is you start to chase the shining objects. So I opened my pet care business and I wanted to do basic obedience training. So I did that. And then I had people going, oh, I want to compete. So then we added some competition stuff on. And then I had somebody that was like, I want to do tricks. So we added some trick classes. And then I had people that wanted to do rallies. So so we kept adding on classes because people were asking me for it. So I would chase those shiny objects and say, oh, I have 5 people ask me about this. And I would start to do it. And then one day I sat down and I was like, of all these classes I offer, like trick class would fill pretty regularly. Rally would fill like once a quarter, and then I couldn't offer it. Like the next 3 times I offered it, it wouldn't fill until 4 months had gone by, and then I could fill it again. And finally, we just did away with everything and said, we are just doing family pet dog training. That's it. You want competition? I'll tell you where to go. You want rally? I'll tell you where to go. We did build in tricks into our family pet dog training because I thought that was a good tie in, but that became part of our training program. It didn't become an extra class. It was actually part of our training curriculum. But we said, and everybody said, you can't just focus on family pet dog training because what about the people that want rally and the people want fly ball and the people want this and that? And I just started referring those people out and I became busier than ever. And so I can just tell you again, this is not, I feel like it's not intuitive, but if you read any market, you will not find a marketing book out there that doesn't say this, that doesn't say niche down your market to figure out exactly what your client looks like.
Know how much I wish I would have known this when I started my business? Again, it's the things that don't always get talked about. So hopefully you guys did find that.
Exactly. And as you can see, I didn't do it. Like I figured it out. By the time I did that, I was in my I was actually, I think, just going to my third location. So that was probably 10 years into my business. It's not like I was not making money, but I can tell you my business grew dramatically as soon as I did that. More growth than I had year by year to year, more growth than I had the first 10 years.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I think that's great. And then a similar question, but it's a little different is okay, you figured out your niche, who you want to go after. Then answer this question: how is your business different from the competition? Because you never want to talk bad about competitors. Competition is healthy, it makes everybody stronger. But you should be able to explain your strengths and what you're offering that stands alone and speaks to your target niche.
Yeah, and I think this is another one when we ask people what sets you apart. They like usually will get, we take better care of the dogs. And everyone's going to say that. We take good care of the dogs. That should be pay to play. That should be like, that's not what sets you apart. That's like the bare minimum is you should all be taking care of the dogs, good care of the dogs. But what I think gets not ignored, but if you're in the industry as long as Susan and I have been, we have seen a wide range of, let's just say, a wide range of how people run their pet care business. And we know for a fact, so if these are some things, if you're out there listening and you already have your pet care business going and you're doing education and you're a member of associations like the International Boarding and Pet Service Association, if you're doing online training, if you're going to conferences, if you're training your staff or getting them PAC certified, all of those things set you apart. And I think a lot of people who are in the industry and are really serious about it, they forget about that. Like they forget that's not normal. And I can tell you, I wish it was normal, but it's not. This is an unregulated industry.
Yes.
So the fact that you take pride in the education and ongoing training and making sure that your staff is following the best practices that are out there, that's all really super important. And you need to make sure you're promoting that and telling your clients about that. If you do enrichment as opposed to like day long play. So Susan and I both started with day long play and we now promote an enrichment model of daycare. That sets you apart. If you're just out there going, we do daycare, and people don't realize that your daycare actually looks totally different from the daycare down the street, then you're doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're charging more. Because now they're just going, they're 40 and they're 60. I'm going to go to the $40 one. But if you tell them, we're $60 because we do individual care for the dogs and we do enrichment and we do all these individual activities and one-on-one, whatever that looks like for you, that makes a difference. There's so many ways to differentiate yourself, but I feel like that's one of the areas again that people don't focus that much on.
Yeah. I would agree. And I think what you really want to think about is it from the pet perspective, the client perspective, what are you bringing that's different? And also think about what's needed in your market. I would really study your competition, not only the services they provide, but their client care policies and aspects. Like people that are in near health facilities often have different types of hours and services available for people that work 12-hour shifts. So it's matching up what's your target clients in your market and what can you do either from pet care, client care, service mix to really cater to them and show that, like Robin said, understand their problems, needs, and are going to solve that for them.
And this is where a lot of times Susan and I talk about, people will call us and they'll go, my place is really small and I'm not going to be able to do much. And we're like, that's one of the best things. When
Yeah.
you can get a wait list, you can pick and choose your clients and you can charge a premium because you're giving them the care they want. And those clients start to recognize that you're providing a much better and different service than your competitors, and they will pay for that. And then Deb had asked this question, niching down still work in a rural area. We have probably less than 60 to 65K people within a 15-mile radius.
Yeah, I think it definitely can. And again, think about what aspect or what part of that market would be looking for and wanting the services you're going to provide. And can they afford to pay what you need to charge and who that is? But definitely in rural areas, you can have a great niche business and it doesn't have to be really big. I think that's the other thing that's can be nice is a small niche business because the clients feel like you really know them and know their dog and that you're not going to get lost in the numbers.
Yeah, and I would say Deb, because I happen to know Deb has done real estate, probably this you could probably look at this, and everybody could look at this. It's just I happen to know she's been in real estate. So this is a cool thing is you probably know there's different areas in terms of the housing market and the type of people that are going to buy this type of house or that type of house, and why, what drives them to buy this house or this house. And some of those decisions are going to also affect how they deal with their animals. And one of the biggest things I heard initially when people would open in rural areas is nobody's going to bring their dog to daycare because we all have big backyards and they all run around outside. And we have found that is true in some places, but also in those same rural areas, you're going to find people that are making a bigger income, have discretionary income, are living in the rural area for the peace and quiet, but they still want to do something really fun and do it fun stuff with their dog. And so they're still willing to, there's just as many of those people now, and probably I would say now more than ever, who are saying, oh my gosh, my dog's just in the backyard all day, as opposed to saying, why would I go to daycare? My dog's in the backyard all day. They're going, oh my gosh, I got to find something for my dog to do. He's just bored back there. So I really think it's looking at what you're going to offer and which of that target market out of those 60K number of people within 15 miles, you're not going to serve all of them. So you're going to have to decide which of them make the best client for the services that you're going to want to offer and what problems you can solve for them. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I would just really don't necessarily copy what everybody else is doing. Think about how you can bring something a little bit different and be sure to explain the value that then has. We've talked a lot about, I think all these questions are really important, and I wish I would have spent more time on them and
Cool.
knew the answer before I opened. Logistically, opening a business, there's a lot that you need to know. You need to know how to run a business, how to be a leader. And running a business means several different systems that you're going to have to set up. You're going to have to market to get the leads. You're going to have to convert leads into customers, which is a sales process. Then you need to have understand the finances and the numbers so that you know what to do to make money. You need the customer care. There's a lot of systems, and so you've got to put all of this in place to be able to run a business that operates without you having to answer every single question. And when you're first planning, you tentatively put SOPs and plans in place, but really recommend that once you open, you get those firmed up as soon as you can, because that is the other place we see business owners struggle is they don't focus on the system because they are so deep in the operations, and then burnout is a high risk.
Yeah, and that's something I feel like I wish I'd have done earlier on. I didn't start building I had written stuff out for myself mainly because I'm just kind of weird that way. But in terms of writing it out in a way that I could give that document and somebody else could do it, I didn't really start doing, which of those are your SOPs. I didn't really start doing that for years. And it wasn't until I really had to start doing it because I was taking on too much. That happened for me. And I think that's probably true for most of the pet care businesses that we work with. But we would say start putting those things in place as soon as you open. And even before you open, whatever you can put in place, even if it's just a 1 page bullet list here, like everything, like where are you keeping the keys? If you're doing pet sitting, where do the keys go? What do you do with someone's keys? Where's that main lockbox? How do you handle situations? What is that person supposed to do when they get over to do a pet sit? And if whatever that looks like for you, just start documenting it and you can flesh it out over time. It's a lot easier to do minor updates than it is to just write everything from scratch, which is we work with a lot of people that have been in business for years and now they're writing all of their SOPs from scratch. And that takes a lot more time.
Yeah. So be prepared to spend time with numbers and marketing and customer care, staff management. That's a big system that you need to have your hiring and training and all that in place. But you also do need to know pets, taking care of your own pets. And people sometimes get attracted to a certain breed or type of dog. And knowing a wide variety of breeds, temperaments, and health and wellness related to that is so important. And this is where we got our start in this industry as far as training and consulting is you have to know canine body language.
I would say for those, there's two kind of two groups of people now that we see getting into the pet care industry. One is the person that we most often see, which is the pet lover, and telling them, hey, you need to learn all about pets is not too hard because they usually want to learn about pets. For them, it's usually the business part of it is harder. Like they don't want to do the finances because they're like, oh, I just want to go play with the dogs. And then you get the other end of the extreme. You get the person who sees this as a really good financial opportunity and understands business, but they don't know anything about dogs. And sometimes trying to get them to understand that they need to do canine body language training is a little bit harder, but you really have to have both. And I will say that the here's the thing, if you don't understand canine body language, because that needs to frame everything you do in your business, that's going to tell you, are the dogs safe? Are they happy? Are they miserable? Are they fearful? Like that all comes down to being able to read dogs. That's going to tell you everything you need to know about your systems. Are you scaring the dogs with stuff you're doing? Are they bored? Do they need more exercise? You can tell all that from the dogs. But you also need to know all of the things that go along with care of the pets and making sure you understand what are the most frequently seen illnesses that happen, that some of which are medical emergencies. And you need to know immediately that, okay, that dog's in bloat. We need to take them to the emergency room. Like you and your staff need to know all of those things. And I say get all that training before you open your doors, because if you don't, the dogs are the ones that pay the toll on that. Dogs will either get, and this is again, this is there's lots of soapbox. I didn't know we have so many soapbox issues in this Facebook Live, but that is a big soapbox issue for us because when you don't do the behavioral education in terms of understanding how to care for dogs, and I get that most of you have had dogs and love dogs and maybe have taken care of 5 dogs of your own over the years that you've had dogs, whatever. But if you don't really reach out and understand what you really need to know about care for dogs when someone's paying you to take care of their dog, that the dogs are the ones that suffer. They either get injured or they get killed. And I can tell you, Susan and I have seen both of those things happen, as well as staff getting injured by getting bitten for doing the wrong things. And that's a huge issue that you want to avoid. And the best way to avoid that is get that training ahead of time. And there's going to be a ramp up to you opening your business. So take advantage of that time when you're building towards opening for you to get the canine education that you need.
Yeah, and the other thing is you may have really social dogs that love playing with other dogs, and you're around dogs that love playing with other dogs. Not all dogs like or should be in group play, and not all dogs should even be in a professional pet center, in my opinion. There are some dogs that are just not appropriate to be there. They could either be high risk of bites, or it could be that the environment is just too stressful because they've never been there. We were one of the first businesses that actually had an application form for dogs to come and lodge with us, because we started with daycare and that type of lodging first. And I was used to getting those profile forms. And I tell you, it broke my heart when I would see an application for a 9-year-old German Shepherd that had never been in a professional boarding facility. It was like, this dog is going to have a meltdown and break my heart. He shouldn't be here. He would be better having a pet sitter come into the home. So not all pets should be in professional pet care. And you've got to open up and realize that all pets will react to professional pet care like the ones you've been around.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, is really understanding. And that goes back to, we talked about understanding the client, the person you want to market to, but you also for your facility need to understand the dogs that you need in your facility and what does their behavior look like and what's acceptable versus not acceptable. And I don't just mean aggression, like a lot of us don't want to deal with aggression, but even just overwhelming stress. If you can't alleviate that stress, whether it's in daycare or it's in lodging, that dog shouldn't be in your facility. So you need to refer them out and have a relationship with a local pet sitter or dog walker that can help you with that dog. It's not just a matter of we can house them here, because that's really not, professional pet care isn't just about housing a dog in a facility. It's about actually taking care of the dog and meeting that dog's needs. Susan and I both in our daycares referred some dogs out. So we both had indoor only facilities. My second location, I had a small outdoor facility just behind a shopping center, but I would regularly refer out mostly the herding breeds, that didn't do well indoors. They needed more room to run than my facility was set up for. And I didn't feel like that was anything about the dog or anything about me. It was just that I knew, and I got those dogs in and I would see them doing spinning behavior or whatever. I was like, this is not good for this dog. And I would refer them to a facility down the street that was outdoors and more suitable. So, really understanding all about that pet care and what goes into making sure that you're providing the best, safest environment and fun environment for that dog, I think is really critical.
And I think one of the biggest things is when you start your own pet care business, you have to be prepared to grow and learn a lot of new things. To grow as a leader, you're going to have a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling at one time. So you need to be decisive and organized. But you've got to be a leader first, which means you have got to be able to inspire confidence from the team, from the clients that you're going to be there. And I think sometimes we don't talk enough about the leadership skills that we need as business owners.
Yeah, and I think that leadership in term a lot of us start out and we're working by ourselves. So in fact, some of us, me included, like working for myself better than Susan. We often say Susan and I obviously work with each other, but we don't have somebody above us and we like it that way. So there is that. But we have a whole team, and we didn't start with a whole team. When I started my facility, I went a whole year and I didn't have anybody else working for me. But you're going to quickly need other people, and you are going to have to be able to lead them. And you're definitely going to have to provide leadership for your clients, and you're definitely going to have clients. But I would also say, and I just put this in the comments too, is how well do you lead yourself is another issue, because the leaders that we work with, the business owners that we work with that have the some of the biggest challenges are people that aren't organized themselves. And Susan and I have definitely grown more organized as we've stayed in business longer. We are also constantly reading books on how to do things better, how to be more productive, how to be more focused. But that type of like self-reflection, I think, is really important. And just understanding like where do maybe you need to focus on getting your own leadership of yourself in line in order to be a better leader for everybody else. Because if you can't lead yourself, then you're going to have a hard time leading other people. And so I do think business ownership, entrepreneurship, I think in general is one of those, I think it's one of those amazing things that can allow you to grow and prosper and thrive. But I also think it is one of those things that can make you extremely humble really fast if you're willing to do the self reflection to say, wow, I really suck at some parts of this stuff that I have to do. And then you either learn how to do it or you bring someone on that can help to teach you how to do it, maybe a little bit of each. But I
Right,
think you have to have that self awareness too.
right. And you do have to understand when you're planning, you have to be involved in everything. But as you get closer to actually putting the business in place and opening, there are going to be things you need to delegate to others because your time is going to be so valuable that you've got to make sure you're spending your time on the right things. And so, Robin, what would be maybe some of the wrong things a business entrepreneur might be spending time on?
Yeah, so I think I what we always tell people is decide what your hourly wage should be as the business owner, and hopefully maybe not starting right out, but hopefully after a few years you're at least in the 50 to $70 an hour range. And then whatever you're working on, can you hire someone for less than that to do it? And a lot of times some of us get totally focused on doing all of the social media ourselves, or sending out all of the individual emails ourselves, even some of the marketing. Some of that stuff you might need to do to come up with a plan. But if you can pay somebody less than what your hourly wage is to do it, it's probably worth doing it. Because instead of just looking at how much it's going to cost you, you want to ask yourself, how much time does that free up for me to actually build my business or to actually do what I'm really good at or what I really want to focus on? And so I think a lot of those administrative tasks, and I feel like that's the biggest thing that we see in pet care business owners is the administrative tasks get put on hold because they don't want to do them and they don't have time to do them. And ironically, the number one business thing that gets put on hold a lot of times is the financial, like
Mhm.
reporting of data, which is really the number one thing you need to be focused on is the numbers. But a lot of times the business owners are like, I don't have time for that. It's always the thing they'll get to later, and then they never get to it because there's so much else you could do. And that's just the life of an entrepreneur. But you really have to figure out what are the things that you really should be focused on and what are the things that you can outsource to somebody else.
Yep, because you're going to want to focus on growing your business and making sure you're providing great quality care when you open, because you have one chance to make a great first impression on your market. So things that distract you from doing those things, you're going to have to outsource to someone else. And the faster you can build your business, the faster you can get paid and do all that. So this kind of leads me into the nuts and bolts of what people often talk about as far as starting a business is having a business plan is so important. And I know when I started out in consulting, I would have people that would come to me and say, would you do my business plan for me? And I always said, no, I will not. I will help guide you through creating your own business plan, but I will not do it for you because this has got to be your plan for your business and you need to understand every aspect of it. Doing a business plan helps you answer a lot of those questions about who is your target clients, how are you going to market to them, how are you going to sell to them, and having that financial forecast, which is a part of your business plan, is your first budget.
Yeah, and really it is the map. If you don't have a map, then you're just going to be going wherever the world takes you. But you that's the reason we all have a map. You have to have that map that tells you I'm on the right track early on, obviously, before you're burning out or before you figure out like it's been 6 months and I don't have money. Like you should be able to see that pretty quickly. And and it is a living document. So you're going to change that forecast as you start getting actuals, but it is going to help you to understand the direction your business is going and then see how close are you to hitting your mark. And maybe you're blowing it out the park and you're doing great, and then that's a time to adjust, or maybe you're not doing as well as you thought and that's a time to adjust. But you need to have a roadmap, or you just don't know where you're going to get. You don't know where you're going and when you get there. So just be careful about just having someone that'll do it for you or just building it from a template.
Yeah, Business Plan Pro, I think, is a software that you can get that has templates, fill in the blanks, so it'll give you the sections you need to do. But a really important part of your business plan is your 3-year financial forecast, because you want to know now whether your plan is going to make you money and provide that definition of a successful business, what it looks like for you. So you want to know now when you put the numbers in. Now, will they be perfect? No, because it's a forecast. But as Robin said, it becomes your map, and you're going to know whether you're on the journey you thought you were or if you're on a different journey, and you can make adjustments. And I would say I looked recently at someone's business plan and they didn't have the business making a profit until probably well into year 2. And I'm like, why are you planning to not make money until the second year? I would really try to make money the first year. And when I pointed things out, I think your rates are too low. And so they were starting out with rates too low to where they were going to be losing money for 18 months. Now, if you just have a lot of cash,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. That business plan is also going to tell you how much reserves of your own do you need to have, because that means you're funding the business out of either you're working another job, which we do see a lot of people do that. They're working another job and they're trying to open a business. And you can do that, but you will burn out. Like that is not sustainable as a 3-year plan to do, running a job, doing a full-time job and trying to run a company. It's just not it's not a good way to start. If you can build a business plan that allows you to make money a little bit sooner, that's going to be a lot better. So and then it is going to tell you, again, you're not going to know every single price. Wherever you get your land or property, they can usually give you rough estimates for utilities and water and basics like that. You are going to have to guess a little bit on some of the expenses, but still just build something and then you can adjust it as you go and see. And the great thing is if you're using like Excel, which is what we would recommend. And you can change those numbers, and then the whole calculations will change. So you can see immediately what's the effect of increasing my prices, or what's the effect of having more dogs, or what's the effect of a lower rent the first, or lease, whatever, whichever you pay the first 3 months, or whatever it is. So you can do those calculations.
And I think one thing people don't realize, and I know this happened to us, we got in the hole right away because our build out took a lot longer than I thought it would when we were renting. And so we ate up a lot of our working capital before we even opened the doors and started out in the hole. And that's something that I've learned is so hard to predict. And so part of your business planning, if you're starting from scratch and that either building or having renovations done, is to find out from your contractor city planning offices, how long does it take to get permits in the best case scenario, and probably plan on an additional 30 or 60 days for
Yeah,
delay.
that's what I was gonna say. We always tell people add a couple months onto whatever they tell you, just for planning purposes. Because if it goes faster, great, but it's better to plan for the worst case scenario. I would just say it's almost guaranteed something is not going to go as on the schedule that it comes out with. So Jen said, great advice. I love this. Nothing like this existed 30 years ago. So Jen, that's exactly what we said when we started, that there's so many times we hear that I wish somebody would have told me that a while ago. So I appreciate that comment. And then Julie had asked this question, is a small business accountant someone who can input the data?
I would look for a bookkeeper or a small business accounting firm that may have a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper is usually a lower rate that can do the data entry. A lot of people use QuickBooks Online, means you can use bookkeepers from around anywhere, and that would be at a lower rate than an accountant. But you will want an accountant or a tax person to help you with submitting your annual taxes and tax planning for you. And if you have staff, you want a good, reputable payroll company, either through your accountant or an ADP, someone like that. Because what you may not realize as a business owner, even if you outsource somebody else to make your tax deposits and pay your taxes, you as a business owner is still responsible. So if they don't do it and take off with your money, you've lost that money, and now the IRS is not happy with you, and you're still gonna have to pay them again.
Which
So
happened to me.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that happened to me. I owed $40,000 in back taxes. I found out one day because because and here's the thing, is because this was early in my business, probably in my first 6 years of business. I didn't want to learn about any of that crap. I was like, I ain't learning any tax stuff. But I don't know. I don't care. I'm gonna hire someone. I didn't learn about date stuff were due. I didn't learn about what forms I needed. I literally, this is probably my biggest financially, my biggest mistake was I just said, I'm going to hire someone and I'm not going to learn any about. And he would have taught me. I just didn't want to do it. But I found out the IRS sent me an email or a letter, and by that time my accounting offices had changed hands. They were sold to somebody else. And then that person was actually the one that totally was telling me they were sending stuff in and they weren't. And anyway, I had to pay $40,000 in back taxes, which I did, but it's a horrible lesson to learn. So you don't have to do it all, but you definitely need to understand it.
and so Robin, my last question, because this is always when you've got your business plan, you're well on your way to opening, you have a location, you're doing your build out. At what point in this process do you start marketing and finding leads for your business?
Yeah, I would start marketing your business as soon as you can. I don't think you can market too early, to be honest. And if that means you're looking now, maybe you're going to open your business in a year, I would start marketing now. Like the very first thing I would figure out is a business name, and I would register that name with your county or whatever that process looks like for you. Every county is a little bit different. And I would get a website. And if all you do on your website, I would just put up one big page. And most websites, you do this for no cost. It's just basically the landing page of your website before you build it out. And I would put something on there that says coming soon, click the link below for more information and to be kept up to date. And so you're immediate, and you just set some kind of audit or collector on there to where people can put their email in so that you can tell them when things are going to come and when you're opening. And I don't think you can do that too early. And then if I would actually start putting up a social media page just to start building that page, and initially all you might be putting on there is occasionally coming soon, and then lots of shares from other educational or funny sites just to build your Facebook page, so that then the closer you get to opening, the more you can start to promote coming soon, and you can start doing things like, I got my permit today. You could actually put a screen capture up of you outside the county office saying, got the permit, my business is opening in 6 months or whatever. Don't put a firm date though, because it's going to change, but you can say general dates. And then, and Four Paws Lodge, if any of you follow them, they opened up in, is it Fisherville, Indiana? Four Paws Lodge, the number four Paws Lodge, they just opened up, but they did one of the best lead ups to their build out, because they did drone footage of their build out that they would post. They had pictures of the outside steel construction going up. They had maps of the location with, here's where we're going to be. And then, and over the 6 or 7 months of their whole build out, pretty frequently they were putting posters up, pictures up there. And then as the build up started to happen, they started to do Facebook lives where they would walk you through the building. So they did a great job, and that's what I think everybody should be doing. But even if you have nothing yet, just set up a website so you can start collecting emails. Even better if you can start to send stuff out, maybe not weekly, once a month or once every other month, that are just helpful tips to pet parents, so that they keep them in, keep you in top of mind to them. That's really helpful as well.
And as things start opening up from COVID, I would start going to pet events in your community and talking to people and just getting to know other people in the industry who may be referral sources for you. Even who you may think are competitors, I would introduce myself, because you never know. They may be full and have a wait list and looking for someone that they could refer to. Or like Robin said, if you're going to do small dogs only, then maybe they refer small dogs to you or tiny dogs to you.
Yeah. Debbie said, does it date me that we didn't have social media when I started? I know it was a lot easier, Debbie, when we just had to call the yellow pages and be like, how much ad you want? Like that was the only decision we had to make back then. Yeah, that dates us all, Debbie. Thanks. But yeah, it's so true. I do think it's more challenging now. There's so much more noise out there in a lot of ways. So that again goes back to why you need to niche down, because there's so much noise. You need to be able to break through that noise. So Jen said, pagers and Nokia cell phones with a big antenna. Yeah, those big bricks you used
Yeah,
to have in like the trunk of your car. I got a cell phone back there. Oh my gosh.
we are dating ourselves.
We are dating ourselves. When our first Knowing Dogs, our staff training program came out, it was on a DVD.
I know.
So that's how old that program is. And then we redid the entire program to change the PowerPoints to be more millennial friendly several years ago. And then we were like, oh, we're like really fashionable now. We're changing it to USBs. And then now it's obviously online, but it is funny how fast the world changes. And I will say that there used to be a DVD out there of me, of a presentation of me teaching canine body language with a, for those that even know what this is, one of those transparency things, like where you actually put the transparency down and turn, there's like a big light over it that would shine up onto the wall, and then you pull the transparency out and put the next one down.
I was at one of your presentations where you had a transparency. I was in the audience.
That's just sad. That's how long we've been doing this. But
That's how long we've been in
we're
the
not old. It's just that technology changes very fast. We're keeping up on it. Oh my goodness. We do have a document called 5 Stages to Opening Your Pet Care Business, and it's a free download. And it just gives you kind of a step-by-step process to think through, and questions within each of those 5 stages to think through as you're opening your business. And then we do actually at the Dog Gurus, we do help pet care businesses open their business. So we have a program called Launch Formula. Launch Formula is really a program that takes you through those same 5 steps, but it gives you all the tools and resources you need, and basically helps to guide you along the way. And we put that together because we had so many people just saying, how in the world do you do this? And what steps do I take? And again, you're still doing the work, but the shell and a lot of the tools and resources, including SOPs and documents that you need for the care of the animals, is all in Launch Formula. So that may be helpful to some of you as well. When we created Launch Formula, because as you saw, we are very much advocates of learning about the canine body language ahead of time. So we do include knowing dogs for a single user access in launch formula because we really want you to learn that stuff before you open your doors. So hopefully that will help too. And then Sabine said your 5 steps was a great help to my start. Thanks. Nice to know.
And so if you are considering starting a pet care business, we welcome you and would be honored to help support you do that. But just welcome to a really great community.